Hey everyone, welcome to the Global War Watch Network. If you want to stay ahead of all the major global power shifts and really get the stories behind the headlines, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. All right, let's get into it.
So, here's the deal. Colombia, a longtime U.S. ally, just turned down America's iconic F-16s, and instead, they signed a massive $3.6 billion fighter jet deal with Sweden. Yeah, you heard that right. This move is sending some serious shockwaves through the defense world, and it's a huge shift in regional air power. So the big question we've got to ask is, why? What on earth drove this decision?
Okay, so to really unpack this, we first need to look at the two offers that were on the table. Because this wasn't just about buying some planes. Nope, this was a choice between two totally different philosophies. Two very different deals. All right, let's break it down head to head. In one corner, you have the United States. They put a package on the table for up to 24 F-16s with a price tag of $4.2 billion. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. It was a mix of used, donated jets along with some new ones. Now in the other corner, you've got Sweden. They came in with an offer for 17 brand new Gripen E/F fighters costing $3.6 billion. So not only was the Swedish deal cheaper, but every single jet was guaranteed to be fresh off the assembly line.
So, the first big reason for this whole thing? Well, it comes down to pure military necessity. See, the Colombian Air Force had a huge problem on its hands, a problem they just couldn't kick down the road anymore.
For a long time now, Colombia has been relying on these old Israeli-made Kafir jets. And let's be real, they're basically museum pieces at this point. The maintenance costs were just astronomical. Their actual combat viability was questionable at best, and the tech? We're talking decades old. So getting an upgrade wasn't some luxury. It was an absolutely critical, urgent need.
And this is where the Gripen comes in. For Colombia, this plane is a massive, massive technological leap. We're not just talking about a new jet. This is a total overhaul of their capabilities. Think cutting-edge avionics, super advanced AESA radar, and top-of-the-line electronic warfare systems. You know, President Petro himself put it best when he said these jets are what they need to deter anyone in what he called a geopolitically messy world. And he's not wrong about that.
Okay, so let's follow the money. Because while the Swedish deal was definitely cheaper, this whole thing was about way more than just the price tag. It was about a core principle. What was Colombia actually getting for its cash?
So you can see the difference right there. Sweden's offer was $600 million less than the U.S. package. And look, that's a lot of money, no question. But the real story, the thing that really lit the fuse on this political firestorm, wasn't just the final price. It was about that new versus used question we talked about.
And that brings us to this really powerful statement from Colombia's president, Gustavo Petro. He basically drew a line in the sand. He said, "We are sovereign, we're not obliged to purchase second or third-hand weaponry." And just like that, this wasn't about money anymore. This became a bold declaration of national pride and sovereignty.
And that's where this whole story just explodes. Because that declaration of sovereignty, it wasn't just talk. The decision to ditch used American jets for brand new Swedish ones, well, it kicked off a massive diplomatic firestorm. And Colombia's president started making some incredibly serious allegations.
So according to President Petro, Washington was not happy at all. He went public alleging that U.S. officials were angered by Colombia's choice. He even claimed the U.S. offer was all about political pressure. So in his view, turning it down was a huge act of independence.
But then, things got even more intense. Citing a local news report, President Petro claimed that U.S. entities had actually been tailing his family. I mean, think about that. This took the whole thing from a simple contract dispute into the realm of national security and, frankly, personal safety for the president's family.
And Petro didn't just leave it there. He decided to take this global. He publicly called on Sweden and Saab to condemn what he framed as an attack on our freedom and sovereignty. He was basically telling his new business partner, hey, you need to pick a side here and stand with us against the superpower. That is a bold, bold move.
So, okay, let's zoom out. What does this all mean for the bigger picture? Because this one jet deal, well, it's actually redrawing the geopolitical map in Latin America and pointing to a whole new balance of power.
The takeaways here are just huge. First, for the U.S., this has got to sting. It shows their influence over defense deals in their own backyard might be shrinking. For Saab and Sweden, this is an enormous win. It solidifies their footprint in Latin America with one of their biggest export deals ever. But the most important piece of this puzzle is for Colombia. This is a massive step toward what we call strategic autonomy. Basically, the power to call their own shots on the world stage, free from outside pressure.
And don't think this is just talk. The wheels are already turning. The contract's been signed. The first jets are set to arrive in 2026, and by 2032, the whole fleet will be delivered. Colombia's Air Force is about to be completely transformed.
So this all leaves us with one final really important question to think about. Was this just a one-time thing for Colombia, or did they just create a blueprint for other countries? Could we start seeing more nations trying to balance their old alliances with new partners as a way to carve out their own independence on the world stage?
And that's where we'll leave it for today. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. If you got some value out of this breakdown of a huge power shift, do us a huge favor. Hit that like button, share this with someone who'd find it interesting, and of course, subscribe to the Global War Watch Network so you don't miss our next one.
But what do you think? Was this a brilliant strategic move for Colombia or a risky gamble? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I really want to know what you think. And hey, don't forget to join the conversation on our social media channels. You can find all the links for that down in the description. We'll see you next time.